I watched my mother-in-law standing on the front porch in her house slippers, clutching a plastic bag of her own belongings, while my sister-in-law locked the door behind her and turned off the porch light. It was 40 degrees outside and starting to drizzle, and this woman, 71 years old, diabetic, barely steady on her feet, was looking at me through the dark like I was her last. My sister-in-law threw her own mother out of her house like she meant nothing. My name is Ren, and I want to tell you this story the right way because I think a lot of people have lived some version of it but never had the words. I'm 36, married to a man named Hollis for 9 years, and we live in a small 3-bedroom house that always feels like it's one repair away from falling apart. I'm a dental hygienist. Hollis drives trucks for a regional freight company. Long hours, unpredictable schedule, the kind of job that slowly files a man down without him noticing. We have a 7-year-old son named Cashel, who is the loudest, sweetest, most exhausting human being on the planet. Hollis has one sibling, his older sister Daisy, and if I'm being fair, Daisy and I were never close, but we were civil. She's 41, works in insurance, married to a man named Glenn who mostly stays quiet and does whatever Daisy says. They have a nice house, newer construction, 2-car garage, one of those refrigerators with a screen on it, no kids. Daisy always said she didn't want them, which was her right, but she also had a way of looking at Cashel like he was an inconvenience whenever we brought him to family gatherings. The person at the center of all of this is my mother-in-law, Lorraine. Lorraine is the kind of woman who remembers everyone's birthday without a calendar, who sends cards with actual handwritten notes inside, who once drove 2 hours in a snowstorm to bring me soup when I had bronchitis the first year Hollis and I were married. She raised Hollis and Daisy mostly alone after their father left when Hollis was 9. She worked at a dry cleaner for 26 years and never once complained about it in front of me. She's small, she's gentle, she's got this quiet dignity that makes you want to stand up straighter when she's in the room. 3 years ago, Lorraine started having trouble. It began with small things. Forgetting where she put her keys, leaving the stove on, calling Hollis by his father's name. Then it got bigger. She fell in the bathroom and couldn't get up for 2 hours. She forgot to pay her electric bill 3 months in a row. The doctor said it was early-stage cognitive decline, not full dementia yet but heading in that direction, and that she shouldn't be living alone. Daisy offered to take her in. At the time, it seemed like the natural choice. Daisy had the bigger house, no children taking up space, a spare bedroom on the first floor. Hollis and I talked about it and we both agreed it made sense, even though part of me felt guilty. We could make room, I told Hollis one night in bed. Daisy's place is better set up for it. And she offered, let's not overthink it. I think sometimes we let the easier answer win because we're afraid of what the harder one will cost us. And we don't realize until later that easy has its own price. The first year was fine, or it looked fine from the outside. Lorraine seemed settled at Daisy's. She had her own room, her little TV, her collection of ceramic birds on the windowsill. When we visited on Sundays, she was always dressed nicely, always smiling, always asking Cashel about school. Daisy would cook. She made this roast chicken that was admittedly excellent, and Glenn would sit in the corner watching football while the rest of us talked. But around the 14-month mark, cracks started showing. Lorraine would say things to me quietly when Daisy left the room. She gets frustrated with me. About what, Lorraine? I spilled juice on the carpet. She was very upset. She said the carpet was new. Well, accidents happen. I'm sure she wasn't that upset. Lorraine looked at her hands. She said maybe I need to eat in my room from now on. I told Hollis about it that night. He frowned but shrugged it off. Daisy's always been particular about her house. She probably just said it in the moment. Your mom, I'll talk to Daisy. He didn't. Or if he did, nothing changed. The next time we visited, Lorraine joined us at the table, but I noticed she barely ate and kept glancing at Daisy like she was waiting for permission to exist in the space. Over the next several months, the phone calls from Lorraine started coming more frequently. She'd call me during the day while I was at work, sometimes just to talk, sometimes to tell me things that sat heavy in my chest for hours afterward. Daisy said I'm too much work. She took the ceramic birds off my windowsill. She said they collect dust. Glenn doesn't talk to me at all. He walks past my room like the door isn't there. Each call was a small thing on its own, but small things have a way of stacking into something that blocks out the light, and I started dreading my phone buzzing because I knew it would be Lorraine, and I knew I'd feel helpless again. I realize now I spent too long treating each incident as isolated when the pattern was screaming at me the whole time. Thanksgiving changed everything. We went to Daisy's house for dinner. Me, Hollis, Cashel, Lorraine, Daisy, and Glenn. Daisy had gone all out. Turkey, 3 sides, pie, cloth napkins. The table looked like a magazine spread. Cashel was bouncing off the walls because he'd had candy at a friend's house earlier, and I was trying to keep him from knocking things over. Lorraine came to the table slowly, using the walker she'd started needing a few months prior. She sat down, and as she was reaching for the rolls, her hand trembled and she knocked over a glass of cranberry juice. It spread across the white tablecloth like a stain on a promise. The table went silent. Daisy stood up, pressed both palms flat on the table, and said, "Every single time." "I'm sorry, honey, No, Mom. Every time we have something nice, every time I try to make this house look like a home, you ruin it. I am so tired." "Daisy," Hollis said, "it's a glass of juice." "It's not just the juice, Hollis. It's everything. It's the laundry she can't do right. It's the bathroom she forgets to flush. It's the 3 a.m. wandering. It's my entire life revolving around someone who doesn't even remember what day it is half the time." Lorraine's chin was trembling. Cashel had gone very still in his seat, watching with wide eyes. Glenn stared at his plate like he could disappear into it. "She's your mother," I said. I didn't plan to say it, it just came out. Daisy turned on me. "Stay out of this, Wren. You don't live here. You don't know what it's like every single day. You show up on Sundays and play the good daughter-in-law for 2 hours and then you go home to your life. You have no idea." That landed. It landed because part of it was true. I didn't live it every day. I didn't hear the 3 a.m. wandering or clean up the bathroom or adjust my entire routine. I'd let Daisy carry that weight while I carried the guilt of not carrying it, and now both of us were breaking under different loads. Dinner ended early. We drove home in silence. Cashel fell asleep in the back seat. Hollis gripped the steering wheel and didn't say a word until we pulled into the driveway. "She's getting worse," he said quietly. "Mom, the decline is getting faster." "I know. Daisy can't handle it. So what do we do?" He didn't answer. He sat there with the engine running, rain starting to bead on the windshield, and I watched him wrestle with something he wasn't ready to say out loud. I've learned that the hardest conversations aren't the ones where someone yells. They're the ones where no one says anything at all, and you both pretend the silence doesn't mean what it means. 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, I got the call. It was 9:15 on a Tuesday night. Lorraine's voice, shaking. "Wren, Daisy says I have to leave." "What? Leave where?" "She packed my things. She said she can't do this anymore. She told me to call someone to pick me up." I was already grabbing my coat. "I'm coming. Don't move." I drove 35 minutes in the rain with my knuckles white on the wheel. When I pulled up to Daisy's house, the porch light was off. Lorraine was sitting on the front steps in her house slippers and a thin cardigan, holding a plastic grocery bag with what looked like a few folded clothes and her medication bottles. The drizzle had turned her hair dark and flat against her forehead. I got out of the car and ran to her. "How long have you been out here?" "Maybe 20 minutes. I didn't want to knock again. She locked the door." I looked at the house. The windows were lit behind drawn blinds. Someone was home. Someone had put a 71-year-old woman with a walker outside in the cold and locked the door and closed the blinds. I helped Lorraine to my car, wrapped my jacket around her shoulders, turned the heat up high. She didn't cry. She just stared straight ahead and said, "She told me I was ruining her marriage, that Glenn said it was him or me." So that was it. Glenn, the quiet one, the one who never said a word, had finally spoken. And what he'd said was, "Get rid of your mother." I called Hollis from the driveway. "Your sister put your mother outside in the rain." "She what?" "She's in my car right now. She's soaking wet. She has a bag of clothes and her pills. That's it." I heard him breathe. This long, ragged exhale that sounded like something tearing. Bring her home. Lorraine moved into our house that night. Cashel gave up his room without complaint, moved his pillow and his stuffed dinosaur to the pull-out couch in the den, and said, "Grandma can have my nightlight too. She might be scared." I almost broke right there. The next morning, Hollis called Daisy. I could hear his end from the kitchen. "She was sitting outside in the rain, Daisy. In the rain. She's 71 years old." I couldn't hear Daisy's response, but I could hear the pitch of it, defensive, sharp, rapid. I don't care what Glenn said. I don't care if it's hard. She's our mother. You don't throw your mother out like she's… His voice cracked. He stopped talking, hung up. He sat at the kitchen table for a long time afterward, staring at the wall. I put coffee in front of him. He wrapped his hands around the mug and said, "She told me something I didn't know. She said Mom told Glenn she didn't think Daisy was a good wife. Said it to his face about 6 months ago. That's when things got bad." A backstory bomb. Lorraine. Sweet, gentle Lorraine had apparently told Glenn during one of her more confused episodes that Daisy wasn't taking good enough care of him. She probably didn't even remember saying it, but Glenn remembered. And Daisy, whose entire identity was wrapped in being capable and in control, couldn't forgive her mother for undermining her in her own house, even if the words came from a mind that was slowly unraveling. It didn't excuse what Daisy did, but it added a dimension I hadn't expected. It made it messier than villain and victim. It made it human in a way that was harder to carry. I think the most painful truths are the ones that make it harder to hate the person who hurt you, because then you're stuck holding the anger with nowhere clean to put it down. Lorraine settled into our house. It wasn't easy. Our home was smaller. I rearranged my work schedule to be home more, which meant less income. Hollis picked up extra routes to compensate, which meant he was gone more. Cashel handled it with the resilience kids have that adults forget they've lost. He read to Lorraine before bed, showed her his drawings, told her about every single kid in his class by name and personality. But the strain showed up in the margins. Hollis and I started snapping at each other over small things, dishes, bills, who forgot to buy milk. One night, after Lorraine had a bad episode where she didn't recognize me for about 20 minutes, I sat on the bathroom floor and cried as quietly as I could. Hollis knocked on the door. "Ren? I'm fine." "You're not fine." "I know I'm not fine, Hollis, but I need you to let me not be fine for 5 minutes without trying to fix it." He sat down on the other side of the door. I heard him slide down the wall. We sat like that, separated by 2 inches of wood, and neither of us said anything, and somehow that was the most connected we'd been in weeks. Daisy never apologized. She sent one text to Hollis about a month after. "I did what I had to do for my marriage. You'll understand when you're in my position." He didn't respond. She didn't reach out again. 6 months passed. Lorraine's condition worsened. We eventually had to bring in a part-time aide because I couldn't manage it alone, and the cost was staggering. Hollis and I dipped into savings we'd been building for years. The ceramics on the kitchen counter that Cashel had made in art class, a lopsided bowl and a lumpy dog, became the most expensive-looking things in the house because everything else was going toward care. Glenn left Daisy in March. I heard it through Hollis, who heard it through a cousin. Apparently Glenn had been unhappy for a long time, and once Lorraine was gone, there was nothing left to distract from the emptiness of that big house with the screen refrigerator. Daisy, who had thrown out her mother to save her marriage, lost the marriage anyway. The equation she'd built collapsed under its own logic. I wish I could say I felt nothing when I heard, but I felt something complicated, a knot of sadness and grim recognition that didn't untangle into anything as simple as satisfaction. Lorraine is still with us. She has good days and harder days. Last Sunday, she sat at the kitchen table while Cashel did homework, and she looked at me and said, clear as a bell, "You're a good woman, Ren. Hollis is lucky." "So am I, Lorraine." She smiled. Then she asked me where her ceramic birds were, and I had to tell her I'd get some new ones, because the originals were still sitting in Daisy's house where nobody was looking at them. Hollis and I are tired. Our savings are thinner, our house is louder and more crowded, and there are mornings I wake up exhausted before the day starts. We won the fight to give Lorraine the dignity she deserved, but the cost of winning is a life that's harder in ways I couldn't have predicted. I don't regret it, not for 1 second, but I won't pretend it didn't take something from us too. Some victories don't come with celebration. They come with a quiet understanding that you did the right thing, and the right thing was heavy. If someone in your family was being mistreated by another family member, would you step in, even knowing it would change your whole life? Or would you protect what you had? I'd really love to hear your honest answer in the comments. And if this story hit home for you, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It means more than you know, and I'll see you in the next one.